My name is Rossina Zamora Liu. My mother is Vietnamese. My father is mixed everything else. So I think of myself as a Pan-Asian, Filipino, Indonesian, Chinese, Malaysian, all of that. So I came to the United States a long time ago when I was 5, 1979. Now you guys know how old I am. Let's see, I grew up in Northern Virginia and then part of my life in Maryland. Just very stereotypical refugee status because even though my father was Filipino and of other identities, racial identities, when we came here, I came here with my mom, and so we were Vietnamese refugees in 1979. I don't know what else. Is that enough?
Could you tell us more about your education and work background?
Sure. Well, education. I went to the University of Maryland as an undergrad. A long time ago. You would think I got a PhD because I just kind of putz around for a while. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I know that my mom, there was a lot of pressure. There's nothing new here. It's very stereotypical that my mom wanted me to become a doctor. I was a chemistry major for 3.5 years, and I was horrible at it, and almost thought I spilled acid over somebody, but not really, because clearly I didn't read the manual, and if you see like the letter H, you always think that it's acid. And so I decided that I would skip one step of pouring it into the beaker.
I'm so sorry.
And decided to take this giant gallon and pour it into this funnel, into the burette. And of course, it splashed all over my partner. And I panicked, and I said, I splashed acid all over her, help me, and of course, she panicked because even though she had read it, when you hear, oh, somebody spilled acid over you, she ran to the shower, and she was about to pull the shower, and of course, my TA the whole time was like, Rossina, that was vinegar. And I was like, oh, sorry. But anyway, that was my cue to be like, okay, clearly I should not be a chemistry major. So then I majored in history, and that's where I really thrived. And then we started, there was I think it was the second run of the first Asian American Studies experience class. It was called Asian American Experience. And that was it for me. That was something that I thought, oh, yay, there's something that actually talks about Asians who grew up in America and who were born in America, and kind of felt like I felt much more connected to it than Asian history. Even though I loved Asian history, that was sort of like the only go-to I had until this course, and that really changed things for me. And then I took a class with Phil.
Wow.
Yeah.
Teacher for a long time.
For a long time. Sorry, Phil.
Sorry, Phil.
But yeah, no, Phil was great. I remember specifically, we were talking about racism, and he explained that you can't be a racist if you're if you're not white and if you're not a person in power. And I thought, I had never heard of that, because I thought the term racism was shifted quite a bit and became very flexible, that anyone could use it, that it rendered nothing, right? It meant nothing. So, but when Phil said it, it just kind of clicked, and I thought, oh, there's issues of power related. And up until that point, I don't think I really understood that. So Phil was really one of that first moment for me to understand the critical aspects and the politics behind what it meant to be an Asian American.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then I graduated finally, which we thought never would happen. And then I went through like 5 majors. So, yeah. All related to chemistry somehow. But then, and then I worked as an editor for a while, and then I went back to school. My husband and I moved to Iowa. He got his professorship there. And so, I mean, I was this cultural shock. It was
Yeah.
just the whitest place on earth. And, but it taught me a lot about what it means to be in white space.
Yeah.
And I never thought of myself as a very critical thinker outside of Phil's class.
Mhm.
But over the course of lived experiences of 18 years in Iowa, you sort of can't
Yeah.
kind of avoid that.
Mhm.
So when I was at Iowa, I got my MFA in nonfiction writing. I didn't think I could get into that program, but I did, and that was the most meaningful educational experience for me, because here I got to do art and
Mhm.
the creative stuff that my mom would have never been okay with. But you know, as an adult and you graduate, you can do whatever you want, and you're
Yeah.
married. And so my mom's like, she was still disappointed, but I still did. And then after that, I thought, well, there's a need for me to pursue racial and social justice work as well. So while it was important that I could do my art, I wanted to also learn from community artists and writers.
Mhm.
So I started a writing workshop at the homeless shelter, where I ran it for about 5 to 7 years. And that's where I learned a lot. It really changed how I conceptualize what constitutes literary writing. And that became part of my scholarship when I got into my PhD program. Or actually I got my PhD, and concurrently this happened, and you just sort of learn to critique social injustice, and you know,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's essentially my PhD work really helped me think about what it means to be a creative person
Mhm.
and a creative being. And so it was a great compliment, and that's how I became a professor afterwards. So I teach in education now, and I'm very fortunate. I get to pursue issues. We still call it diversity, and I feel very uncomfortable calling it that, but it doesn't mean anything, right?
Mhm.
But to really talk critiquing whiteness and
Yeah.
white spaces. And so in education, that's pretty much the kind of classes I get to teach. I teach diversity in the classroom. I also teach research methods. And in fact, when you guys were coming over, I was just creating a critical ethnographic research methods class, which really challenges our access to other people's cultures. So
Wow, that's
that's
great.
in a nutshell.
Great. Well, let's move on to the next question. So, could you describe your relationship to the founding and growth of the Asian American Studies program at the University of Maryland?
Mhm.
And could you be as specific with dates, names, and other details as possible? As much as you can remember.
Okay, like I'm super old, so like I don't know if I can remember the dates. Well, I took my first Asian American Studies class in 1995, I remember that. And I TA'd for it in 1997.
Okay.
So that was the year I graduated.
Okay.
What was the question?
Sorry. Describe your relationship to the founding and growth of the AAST at the University of Maryland.
Oh, right. You know, taking that class, the first one in 95, the Asian American Experience class, that one sort of opened up a lot of opportunities to participate in the political movement on this campus, because of the things that were covered. It was a very critical class. And you know, from class you would get announcements too, right? Of like, here's what we're doing, we're changing. It used to be the ASU, for example, the Asian Student Union, and then we changed it to the Asian American Student
Mhm.
Union. And then I was able to participate in that capacity. And at that time, I don't know that I knew enough. They had so many 25-cent words.
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know what that means. And so I sort of just went along, but I knew that in my gut, it felt right, that we were doing something right. So if, let's say, that there would be a need for some kind of rally, and you need people to show up.
Yeah.
You show up. And then attending meetings and just being educated and informed of what's happening in the Asian American community. Then you're like, oh, I really need to also participate. That's when I think Christina DeMeo formed WASP. I believe, don't ask me what it stands for. It was something Asian American and Sisters and Women. Oh yeah, it was women, I don't know, something Asian Americans for Asian American Studies program, Women for Asian American Studies program, or something. Don't kill me, Christina. But that was where we just came together and thought about smaller initiatives at the grassroots sort of thing. But again, I wasn't the leader. I was just grateful to have kind of a cause and a purpose. And I think that's what the class opened up to me, and then all these organizations that started happening during that time. There was, it was Christina DeMeo, Wendy Wang, and then we had, I'm all over the place, it's been a long time. The Asian American Studies Union, I served as their public relations person. Probably wasn't very good at it.
No.
But it was it was something that I was able to participate in, and it gave some identity. Me a sense of identity and belongingness. We had the ICASU conference and the East of California conference, which having a hand in helping organize. Again, I wasn't any of the leaders in there because I don't want to take that away. I know at this point everybody says they have a shared experience, and it was wonderful, and it really was a collective. But let's be very clear, there were some pivotal leaders that made it happen. And Will Liu, who you guys are going to interview, certainly was our leader, but also Christina DeMeo for the undergrads. Those are the two names that, to me, when I think of the Asian American Studies program, I think of their names. And so, again, the opportunity to organize the conferences and participate in it felt like we were doing something right. So
that's great.
I don't know, I can't remember specifics, sorry.
That's fine. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Could you paint a picture for us of what it was like to be on campus at the time? What are some of the most vivid memories that you have that can help us understand life in College Park around the year 2000?
2000, I wasn't here in 2000, I was here in 1990s.
Let's do that
so
then.
Yeah, okay. There were a lot of, it was the first time I came onto one space where I saw so many Asian Americans all together.
Really?
Yeah. And by many, you gotta understand, I grew up in Montgomery County with predominantly white and Jewish communities. So it's not like, it's all relative, right, to my perception. But there were a lot of smaller groups of Asian Americans. Some didn't want to be called Asian Americans. Some were just the Chinese student group or the Chinese culture club. So we had all these cultural clubs happening. But I liked the Asian American Studies or Asian American Student Union group because it kind of represented me because I was neither one nor the other. And there was a collective, a sense of a purpose and collective element to it that I really valued. Prior to that, the campus was white. I mean, and back then, Greek life was a big thing. It was cool to be Greek life. So lots of fraternity males, you know, in their baseball caps. That was the thing, baseball caps and flannel shirts.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like. There was not a lot of access. Asian American Studies, nobody knew what it was. You just did not know that it even existed. Like I said, I had to change majors and then pursue a history major to learn about Japan, Vietnam, China, but again, not the Asian American community, right? It was more like othering of, yeah. So that to me was the landscape. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you describe in detail 2 or 3 events related to the founding and growth of the AAST that you personally witnessed and made, or which made a lasting impact on you?
Again, the ICASU conference in the East of California, those were important because we engaged in workshops that really looked at not just what you learned in the history books, but also we enacted, we heard speakers, and then there were also artists, Asian American artists who came to perform. It became like this really, it became very real, like there is such a thing as an Asian American group. That I think is what propelled us politically for many of us who weren't in the know necessarily, but it made us care more.
Yeah.
Having a conference like that is important. I remember one time we did Stereotype Day. Now we messed around a lot, and we had a lot of fun with that because it was just our opportunity to just dress up, and it was wrong. It was super racist, and we didn't think about it as that way. We just thought, yeah, we're gonna dress up as stereotypes that people have about us. I don't know what that purpose was, other than we went around campus and did a rally. But I remember that moment. And I remember ICASU in East of California. Being educated, you know, so he taught that course. And in that way, you know, that's the Will Liu that I don't really know in many ways. It's that the pre-Rossina years. So I know you'll get a lot when you guys interview him.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next question.
Okay.
So, looking back over the years, is there anything you would have done differently? Describe the situation and how would you do it differently in hindsight? Yes? Oh no.
Yes. Oh, gosh. I didn't grow up reading a lot of books. I hated reading, in fact, because it felt foreign and oppressive to me. It was just something I couldn't access. And if I could do it all over again, I would probably have been a lot more diligent with reading and informing and educating myself. As a professor now, that's all I do, right? But I don't know the movement from then to now, what sparked that interest to get me to like, yes, I'm just gonna pursue the scholarship. Why is that important? That's important because I remember an incident. As I said, I was the officer who did public relations for the Asian American Student Union. And I remember I was charged with purchasing a sign for us that says Asian American Student Union, so that we could go maybe for rallies, but maybe also just at fairs, right, for our booth. And I had $200 to work with. So I thought, well, that's easy. I'm just gonna call the sign company and have them make a banner for us. So what did they do? They make a banner, and I said, I just want Asian American Student Union. They said, got it, but you know what? What kind of font do you want? So I said, I don't know, regular font. And they said, how about bamboo?
Oh.
Charleston font. And had I been more informed, I would have been like, no, that's super racist. But what did I do? Wow, what a great idea. So I said, yes, I want the bamboo letters. So we get it back, and I'm so proud. And Will was our graduate advisor, and we were at a meeting, and Christina goes, Rossina, you have a sign for us. We can't wait to see it, right? And I said, I unveiled it, right? And everybody actually, seriously, everybody actually loved it at first. Okay, they're like, wow, that is cool. Okay, and then I looked over, and Will does this. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he's just like, you're gonna have to return that. And I thought, why? It's so awesome. And he says, not in bamboo letters. Stereotype, racist, blah, 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 it goes on. And I remember just turning so red in the face. And then one by one, they all turned on me, and they're like, yeah, Will's right. I was like, no! But he was, right? And so he says, you're gonna have to try to see if you can get our money back. And back then, $200 was a lot of money for a student group. I don't remember if we got our money back. We did get another sign, and I was removed from doing that task. If I could do it over again, obviously I would have been more informed. I think it was very easy to be in the moment and to be excited just to belong somewhere, but I didn't do the work, and I think that's the problem. And I should have done more, because this is serious stuff, and I think I messed around a lot back then, so that's my memory.
Okay, well.
That's my shameful memory.
Let's move on. So could you describe your dreams for AAST when you were on campus, and how AAST has realized or fallen short of those dreams over the years? If dreams were not met, how can AAST meet them now? I can read that again.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
At the time, we were so grateful if we even could get a certificate program running. And then it evolved into a minor, which we didn't get to witness because we had left the campus. It has evolved beautifully. It has its own beautiful office. It has everything that I don't think we could have had back then. So in that way, the Asian American Studies program has grown and evolved in ways that I never would have imagined. I also love that there are courses, multiple different types of courses that allow students to engage in conversations about what it means to be Asian American. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited because I get to teach one in the spring, I think. But so in that way, I have nothing but great things to say about the Asian American Studies program. What I do wish that if I could change anything, what I do wish is that more students were involved in the movement. Right now, it may feel like there's not any purpose, right? But to me, cross-cultural collaboration and cross-racial collaboration is everything. We are nothing if we are not part of a larger community of parts of the communities of color. And what my wish for it has nothing to do with the program as it does for just Asian American students on campus in general to feel inspired and to care and mobilize ourselves to support, for example, low Black student enrollment. That's atrocious, right? We have such a huge decline. We have to care about those things too. Even if it feels like it's not part of our community, but we are part of a larger collective. And that's one thing that is because the program's so successful and the movement was so successful that now we're in this period of like complacency. And that's both a good and a bad thing, although I would argue more of a bad thing, right? Because movement that should not just be inspired or propelled by your self-interest, but by our collective. And so that's where I would want to see more. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the program itself, but as the Asian American community here is something that's important.
For sure, yeah. Okay, so final question. Students, and summarize in just a minute your dreams for them and any lessons that you learned in your days being affiliated with AAST.
Okay, I don't know if I can summarize that really quick. I think it's very important. I think it's very easy to forget what it means to be part of a larger collective. I think that as Asian Americans, oftentimes we are deemed as akin to whiteness, the secondary whites, right? Modern minority, all of that, those jargons. And I think it's easy to be enamored by it. It's easy to say, okay, yeah, I'm cool with it, and then move on. But that's the worst thing we can do. I think it's all of us, as part of our existence, need to think about racial and social justice and what it means to participate in moving in that direction toward anti-racist practices. And what that looks like. It's going to change. I'm not suggesting that everybody participates in the same way. But I think it's important for us, again, to think about cross-racial collaborations, what it means to engage with others and ourselves. I would not be where I am today without primarily the support of women of color, and in particular, many of them are African American and Latinx, as well as Asian American women. I'm in the academy, and nowhere, and I've learned so much what it means. I learned who has supported me and who hasn't. And I know what opportunity hoarding looks like. And only when I'm among my colleagues, most of whom are women of color, do I feel like they genuinely say, hey, there's an opportunity here, I think you should do this, and pull me in to elevate me. So my hope for the future generation is to think about ways we can elevate each other rather than work against each other. To work and find that if there are opportunities that you see could fit for others, and their name comes to mind, you immediately call them, and you immediately share that knowledge. I think to do otherwise is to uphold white supremacy. That's as blunt as I'm going to get.